A lot of shit happens in life over 6 years, and I feel like it's kind of a collection of all of those things.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
I'm Jon Reider, Ascended Dead.
And John, how would you describe the music of Ascended Dead?
It's dark, chaotic death metal, influenced very heavily by like first gen death metal, like Old Possessed or Necrovore kind of stuff, but just, a lot more blast beats.
So when we say a lot more blast beats, would you say Ascended Dead is mostly fast and pretty chaotic?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Would you mind telling me a little bit about how Ascended Dead got together and what your intentions were at the time?
Yeah, sure. So we formed in 2011. Basically, mine and Ian's old band had broken up, and Charlie's old band had broken up too. So I found him just on like Facebook or something like that, hit him up to jam, and then we started jamming, and then we started the band, and we had done whatever stupid little local bands at the time. So, we pretty much decided we wanted to make Ascended Dead be this thing that was our ideal band kind of thing, which, was cool to have those early experience with those previous bands, just to kind of like have better, we learned a lot from like the mistakes of our previous bands, when we started this one. And, Yeah, I mean, at the time we were just really heavily influenced by like early Possessed, and that was kind of like, that was and still kind of is like my ideal band as far as like the sound, the songs, the image, everything about it's really good. The riffs, the drums, the vocals, it's well mixed. They have this gnarly image, it's just like, that's kind of like pretty much what we wanted to do. And that's what we've been trying to do for the past 11 years or 12 years or however long it's been. So, yeah.
So it started with you and Charlie, the drummer?
No, it was me, Ian.
Sorry, you and Ian, the guitarist?
Yeah. Yeah, basically the two guitar players. And yeah, we met up with Charlie. And that's kind of how that was kind of the core of the band at the time. And still pretty much is. I think Ian took like 1 year off, 2018, and came back, but other than that, it's been the three of us pretty much since day one.
And, going back to those early recordings, it sounds like you always had this idea, this early Death Black sound in mind for Ascended Dead. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to say black. Like, black metal to me has always kind of been a strange like term, because it's like there's a lot of elitism associated with it, and everyone has this idea of exactly what black metal kind of is, whereas death metal is a very broad kind of thing. It can be so many different things. And a lot of the bands that I'm influenced by as far as death metal goes is kind of like, it's a lot of like the first gen death metal, like I said, Possessed, Necrovore, the first Sepultura release, Bestial Devastation, just like that kind of stuff, where it's just this little kind of gray area between, is it death metal? Is it thrash? Is it black metal? It has elements of traditional heavy metal. It's kind of all those things. And that's kind of what I've always been drawn to, is that type of stuff. So, I mean, I guess death metal, but darker, because I mean, I guess seemed like there was a time where death metal and black metal were pretty much the same thing. And then they kind of split off into their own, but I still have a hard affinity to that first gen, which is like a huge musical influence for me.
Sure. Yeah, like I'm not that hung up on like what black metal means. It's not really an area that I remember when black metal meant either like Merciful Fate or Emperor. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah, totally.
And then, for bands like Samael, who had like their own sound, or Rotting Christ or whatever.
Right.
I'm not really that hung up on what makes a band black metal. I mean, you go back to old zines, like even something like Slayer occasionally gets referred to as black metal.
Right.
Just because of like the lyrical content and the imagery and stuff like that. But in terms of the sound, I mean, it sounds like you love speed. It sounds like you love blast beats. It sounds like you love tremolo picking.
Yeah. Fast, heavy, chaotic, aggressive, just like, and, I hate to keep bringing up other bands, but like Venom, that to me, that's like the epitome of everything that metal should be: just volume, aggression, and punch, just fast, chaotic ignorance, that's what we try to do.
Right on.
Nah.
So how does an Ascended Dead song start? And who does it usually start with?
Like writing wise, or like the actual song itself?
Writing wise. I mean, like, do you and Ian trade riffs? Do you come in with mostly arranged songs, and do you guys work together as a band, or do you guys like jam stuff out?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixture of all those things. I mean, like, and I don't want to frame it like, oh yeah, I write everything kind of thing, because like that's how like my old band from a long time ago was, where it was like I wrote everything, and just the members, it was like you play what I tell you to play kind of thing. Whereas Ascended Dead, it's more like basically it's like I come up with a very, very general idea, or like a section, or like a sequence of riffs, and then together we all kind of jam it out and bounce ideas off of each other, and just keep hammering it until it's a song,
But it sounds like you're mostly working on the riffs and the arrangements.
I guess you could say it's kind of all of us. I mean, it's just like Ian has his own like music that he writes for, and it's just kind of like, the very general idea comes from me, and then all that other stuff is all of us together adding their little flair to it, and really making it what it is.
Gotcha. And do songs usually start with a riff for you?
Yes, I would say so. Yeah, always been a very riff driven kind of entity, at least for me.
What state are the songs in when you bring them to or I guess I should say ideas when you bring them to the rest of the band? Do you usually have like an idea of flow, how you want a song to progress, or is it really what the four of you come up with together? Is that how a song takes shape?
It's hard to say. I feel like a lot of it has to do with the nature of like the song. Like for example, on like our new album, we have a song called we have like two songs. Like there's Visceral Strike and Ungodly Death, for example. They're very like they're pretty short songs, and we tried a bunch of different stuff on it. And Subconscious Barbarity on the first album is kind of like this too, where it's just like we try so many different things, and it turns out the shortest, simplest way is kind of like what ends up being how it is. Or sometimes, then you get other songs like The Curse, for example, or Inverted Ascension, where it's just like it ends up being longer just because that's just the nature of the ideas and the riffs on it. So I guess it's not really like, it just depends on the idea itself, I guess.
On May 12th, 20 Buck Spin will release the second Ascended Dead album, which is called Evenfall of the Apocalypse. Tell me a little bit about the album.
Well, it took us a while to write it and complete it. And, it's like, a lot of it really just has to do with like how the first album was. I feel like we got a lot of like, we weren't like too happy with how like the guitars came out on it, like as far as like how they sonically sound, and like everything about it was really like one dimensional kind of. So like, I guess for this record, we kind of tried to like grow a little bit more, like not grow, but like in a way we kind of like returned back to like how it was with like the first demo and EP, where it's just, a lot more like variety and a lot more like musical kind of stuff, whereas the first record was like, just play as fast as heavy as possible kind of thing. And a lot of it was just kind of returning back to like what the stuff that I was listening to like back went way back when I was first playing guitar, like just falling back in love with like Possessed and Metallica and, even Black Sabbath and Judas Priest type stuff. I feel like we kind of lost that plot around the time of the first record. So, as far as like all the stuff that was written for it, like, it took 6 years for it to come out. So, it's like, it's kind of hard. It's going to be like hard, like pretty much impossible for me to like discuss every single little part of like all the writing that went into all 6 years, all 11 songs or whatever. But it's like a lot of shit happens in life over 6 years. And I feel like it's kind of a collection of all of those things, and I think the first album, it was we recorded it in 2016. So we had been a band for 5 years by that time. So it was kind of a similar type thing, and like, I know it's a pretty common process for bands to like take forever to write their first album. And then their first album, it's like, then they get pressured to do a second album like next year. And then that's why it ends up not being as good. But for us, it was kind of just like, we want every album to like be as good, if not better than that first one. Otherwise, rather not even do it. So that's why it took so long to do it. But, we're very happy with how it came out overall.
So the 6 years wasn't just because of all the usual, the stuff that all of us were going through for the past 3 years. Or did that also play a part in it?
No, I wouldn't say so. I've if anything, it helped just because it helped. Other members end up having to like do tours or do their other bands or whatever. And for me, it's like I was living with Charlie at the time. So it was in a way, it was kind of a blessing just to not have any distractions for a little bit and just write and fuck around and just do, just jam like for the hell of it, like we did in the early days, without like outside distractions and stuff. And a lot of the negativity from that whole situation might have manifested too, there was other things that happened in our lives throughout that time that kind of manifested in its own kind of way, just in the music and stuff. So I guess it was kind of a blessing, at least for this part of things.
It sounds like, from what you told me earlier, that you went out of your way to make this a more dynamic album in terms of like tempo changes and things like that.
Right. Yeah. It's like, it's not really intentional. Like, yeah, we want to do stuff. Cause like, it's like, I've been to shows where I've seen bands where it's just like, they'll just play a riff and it'll be like, yeah, this riff's in 7. Can you tell that it's in 7? And it's like, that's like the point of the riff kind of thing, and it's like, I don't know. I wouldn't say that.
Sure. I don't mean in terms of like time signatures, but in terms of like changing up the speed, having more slower parts. Like you guys actually did like an instrumental on this album, which has some acoustic parts on it.
Yeah, we did that on the first album too, or something like that on the first album too. But it was a lot different on this one. The last one, it was just acoustic guitars, whereas this time we had. Album's not out yet, so I don't want to reveal too much.
I think the album will be out by the time people hear this interview.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, yeah, the new one, it kind of has it's got that whole section with like the electric guitars and the drums and everything come in too. So,
well, just in terms of dynamics, it sounds like you guys wanted to make a more varied album.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, some of that was also, I mean, just kind of like, we wanted to, if you listen to like the first demo and EP, for example, it's clearly a lot more like riff, driven kind of stuff. And I feel like with the first record, we kind of lost that and it became more based on like just like super fast tempos all the time kind of thing. And, that's why that whole album was just like back and forth between like 4 blasts and 3 blasts. And whereas this one, yeah, it was kind of a return to just how it was before, like before that record. So I guess it wasn't really like super like that much of an infusion of anything new. It was, if anything, it was a return from how it was before.
Gotcha. Where did you guys end up recording the album?
We recorded it at, was it Toad House Studios in Portland. Charlie engineered it. Our drummer, yeah, he recorded all the instruments. I recorded the vocals separately at another location with someone else. Then we had it mixed and mastered by Steve Diacutis, the same dude that did Disma, Evokin, Worm, the new Funebrarm album, which I'm not sure if that's out yet, but that album, he did a lot of stuff on that. And we chose to have him mix and master it just because if you listen to like almost anything he does, he has a really good like analog, warm kind of sound that is very old school sounding, which was kind of also something we were going for too. So yeah, also he has a tendency to make things really big sounding too. So that was kind of why we did that.
Gotcha. I'm curious about the recording the vocals separately. You recorded with Jason Gluck from Rude, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because we lived together at the time.
Oh, I see. Okay. So was it just easier to record the vocals?
And he did it for cheap. What's up?
So was it just easier to record the vocals with Jason rather than at Toad House?
Well, I think Charlie had to go on tour around that time, so we couldn't really record with him, and then everybody else that was around would have charged a fuckload of, would have charged a lot of money for it, and budget wise, things were already kind of like almost, getting a little pinchy, so luckily we did it with him, or I did it with him, and he was pretty cheap and he was super chill and easy to work with, and since we lived together, I could really, really take my time and really just nail down like a song, over the course of like a day kind of thing. And it really helped with the performance of it. Cause I think with the first record, see, that's another thing too. It's like kind of learning from the mistakes that we made from the first record where it's like, we were low on time. So then I tried to do the whole thing like in a day. And then I wasn't particularly happy with like how they came out. Whereas with this one, it was like, I was able to really like take my time and drill it in every single little part the way that I want to happen.
Did you want to do anything different with your vocal performance this time around?
Not really, just mostly just wanted to optimize the performance of it. I think with the first record, I layered like the entire album. Like there's like a high vocal and a low vocal throughout the entire thing. Whereas with this one, there's pretty much only one layer of vocals throughout the entire thing. I think there might be a double, a layer here, a layer there kind of thing. But for the most part, it's just one vocal throughout the whole thing. And which is kind of like I was saying, it's kind of a return to how it was on the demo or the EP from way back in the day, which like it kind of like when it's just double the whole time, it's kind of overkill and it just sounds like, super noisy and stuff. Whereas like if it's, if you do that in strategic bits, then it has more effect when you use it. So yeah, pretty much other than that, it was just like really taking my time and making sure that the performance was exactly what I wanted it to be. And yeah, that was really easy to obtain with that way that we did it. And it's also the songs are also quite a bit different too. Like, like I was saying, all the different peaks and valleys that this record has compared to that one. It's like different like types of riffing, and sections is going to require different like types of vocals over it. So I think also just the way that the songs are kind of lends itself to it.
You spoke a little bit about some of the things that are going on in your lives, in the band members' lives in the background. Do you want to say anything about the lyrics of the album or some of the themes of the album?
Ooh,
it's up to you.
That's tough because it's like I'm not sure if I want to like reveal too much as far as like the whole like narrative structure of the record. But
well,
I mean,
first of all, like when you say narrative structure, is there an overarching theme? Is there a concept that ties all the songs together?
Somewhat. I mean, it's going to be hard for me to describe it just because it's like, I also don't want to make things too specific because a lot of it is just kind of like, it's a sound. It's supposed to like the emotions and everything throughout the whole record is kind of, that kind of is its own thing. And it has a whole like, rebirth, life and death kind of structure, I guess. And, I don't know. That's hard to describe.
spoke about your drummer Charlie recording this album and working on this album as an engineer. Is this the first Ascended Dead album that Charlie engineered?
It is the first full album that he has engineered. He engineered our EP from back in the day, the Arcane Malevolence EP. He engineered the split recordings that we did after the first album, you know, the one with Atomicide and the one with Evil Priest. So I think, yeah, he didn't do the first demo and he did not do the first album, but I feel like those records would have come out, those recordings would have come out better if he did do it. So, you know, yeah, ideally we would just do it with him every time and, you know, have enough time for him to also get a good focus on like the drums and all that kind of stuff that goes into it. Because I think that was like kind of one of the main apprehensions on his part was how hard it is to focus on both recording and on performing the drums on it kind of thing.
Do you want to say anything about what it was like working with Charlie, recording with Charlie?
Oh, it's great. It's smooth. It's, you know, he understands like what, you know, he understands what the musicians want, you know, and recorded with him in other bands too. And, you know, I've been working with him for years. So, you know, a lot of ways I probably take it for granted, but yeah, it's awesome. It's as good as it can be from a musician's perspective, just because you don't feel pressure in any kind of way. And, you know, as such, it's easier for like the ideas and stuff to like come out, you know?
And you mentioned Stephen D. Cutis mixed and mastered the album. Stephen's based in New Jersey and works with a lot of bands on the East Coast. He recorded Dim Mak back in the day. That's a name I haven't seen or heard in like, I don't know, 20 years almost.
Which band?
Dim Mak.
I'm not familiar.
Oh, dude, check them out. It's ex-members of Ripping Corpse. I think you'll dig it. It's got a lot of like very chaotic death metal kind of stuff. Kung Fu themed death metal.
Nice.
Kung Fu themed death metal from members of Ripping Corpse. And you mentioned that Stephen brought a warmer sound to the album. Was there anything in Stephen's back catalog or any band that he's worked with that made you want to work with him?
Yeah, there was two big ones. One of them was that first Disma album, Towards the Megalith. That one was just like, you know, so just huge and massive sounding. And the other one was this Funebrarum album, which I've heard it, but I'm not sure if it's out yet. So I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about that right now. But yeah, I mean, he just like, you know, even though the guy is not like a metal dude, he understands like what we're going for, which is just like, you know, particularly on that Disma record where it's just like, it sounds fucking just massive, but like you can still hear every little thing that's going on. And that's kind of always been like a struggle with us as far, you know, like particularly like, again, I keep bringing up the first record, but it's like with that one, it was also just hard a lot of the like stuff just got lost in that production. And we didn't want that to happen again with any of our future stuff. You know, we wanted all to be able to hear all that stuff, but still retain the heaviness and the darkness, you know?
Yeah. So by the time people hear this podcast, the album will actually be out. And I believe you guys will be going on a West Coast tour.
Right.
Do you want to say anything about that tour?
Let's see. I've been doing a lot of the planning for that. Just it was kind of a sudden thing, you know, like I think right around January or February when the album was finished, you know, the label was like, oh, by the way, do a tour. I was like, okay, all right. Like, you know, we didn't have like really any support for it at all. So I just started hitting at all the people I know and now we're going to do it. So Arizona, San Diego, LA, Sacramento, Oakland, Eugene, Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, BC. If you're near, go to it or not, whatever.
Tell me about the band that you're touring with. Is it Korskrad?
Cosgrad, yeah. I don't know how to say it. It's like some old Irish name. It's like old Irish language. But yeah, they're sick. Their album sounds awesome.
Were these dudes that you knew before, or is it something that the label put together?
They had contacted us because I think we were supposed to do that total. Supposed to do this Total Death Over Mexico together. So we had talked about doing a West Coast thing like around that time, but then the Total Death Over Mexico got canceled. So we kind of just talked about doing a tour, like, we decided to postpone the West Coast thing, or touring together until the time was right. And then when we got the word from Dave at 20 Buck to do the tour, then I hit them up and they were like, okay. And then yeah, that's how that worked out.
Right on. So by the time people hear this podcast, Evenfall of the Apocalypse will be out through 20 Buck Spin. Jon, how can people order the album?
You can order it from 20 Buck Spin's website or 20 Buck Spin's Bandcamp. It'll probably be out on some other platforms, but those two I believe are the main ones.
And do you want to say anything about the physical releases and the vinyl that 20 Buck Spin is putting out?
Sure. It's going to be a gatefold. The inside of it is going to have like a huge piece of artwork on the inside of it, which ties into some of the themes on the record. We were channeling a little bit of the second Possessed record as far as like this, huge kind of presentation. Well, I mean, it's not going to be as gnarly as Beyond the Gates, but it's kind of our little take on that. And the front cover too is also kind of channeling that same sort of thing, where it's like you look at it and it becomes like a, you when you glance at it at first, it appears to be one thing, but then you look closely and then you start to see all the little details and all the other little things that it kind of is. But the CD version has all of that too, and the tape version has all of that too. So whatever version you prefer. Personally, I haven't heard the album since we submitted it to press, so I'm going to be the most excited to hear it on record and see the whole big presentation and stuff like that. And it's the first album I've ever done that I actually enjoy listening to. So yeah,
that's great. It sounds like the experience of opening up the vinyl and all the things that go with it is important to you. You want people to experience the album that way?
Ideally, I would say yes, just because it was written with all of those things in mind. Like we wrote side A, like, all 5 of those songs to be like how it is on side A, and then side B was kind of, all those songs were kind of written as its own separate part. And we've kind of always done it like that, going all the way back to pretty much all of our main releases that have different sides and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's how I prefer it. I know everybody has their own means of what they'll take away from it. And, of course, once it's out, it's not really my album or our album anymore. Now it's everybody's album. So everyone will kind of have their own way of enjoying it and what different things that they'll take away from it. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
That's great. And if people want to follow Ascended Dead online, what's the best way to get tour dates and things like that?
We are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We have a Bandcamp, and we have a website, ascendeddead.com.
Jon, is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it. Die hard.
Very cool. Thank you, Jon.
Thank you.
Three, two, one.
Oh wait,
Okay. What's up?
is it video only or audio only?
I don't have a camera on this computer, but there is a YouTube page for the podcast. So it's up to you whether or not you want this to be video. If you don't mind having a video, then I'll put the video on the YouTube page. If you want it to just be audio, then I'll just clip it and put it up that way.
Yeah, I mean, might be weird to just me audio. So, I mean, just me video. So, probably just, yeah. I mean, whatever. It's up to you. What do you think?
A lot of bands do it this way. I don't really have a preference as far as like which one. It doesn't seem to matter which one gets views. It's really your call. I mean,
Okay.
people will get to see your Slayer posters and your Possessed poster, which is pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, I set it up just for that. All right, cool. Well, I mean, I guess it depends how it goes. Sure. All right, whatever.
All right.